Hello, you're welcome back to the AFM Stories YouTube channel. Today I have created 4 amazing Chevening networking essay tips by 4 scholars. So these scholars won the Chevening scholarship and they're giving you tips on how they wrote fantastic essays to clinch that award.
Okay, so now about the networking essays, I think what is very key is not just only talking about the networks you have. I think it's very important to talk about not just one method you use to network. If you have, there are several ways of meeting network. So of getting networks. So you should show them how you build networks. For instance, I talked about the fact that I had membership with lots of professional bodies in my field, and I tried to build networks there. And one way I maintained the relationship was by attending their monthly technical meetings and volunteering whenever they needed my help, whenever they needed students to volunteer. So I talked about that fact and how, for instance, I talked about my final year project where I designed using a software, I designed an injector technology that I could use to recover flare gas. We have issue with flare gas spraying in Nigeria. So if you see that this manufacturing I'm giving this example now, it still links to my future career plan somehow with the whole sustainability, energy sustainability and everything. So I talked about the fact that I needed data for industry data to back up my work, and I could not get it. Most times in our universities we have these issues with getting data.
Yes.
So because I attend all these events, I was able to attend a conference that was organized by the Society of Petroleum Engineers in Port Harcourt. I think they had that conference in Hotel Presidential or so. So they had different companies have their exhibition booths. So you meet companies, you meet Total, you meet Schlumberger and the rest. And so at that conference, I was able to network with someone that gave me the data I needed for my work. I also got better industry insight on how to carry out my project. So look at the star approach. Not the star approach in this particular example. I had a situation where I had issues with my project, and then I had to reach out to these networks. The task I did was to go for the events, and then the action was to reach out to this network and tell them about my work, which they were interested in the project. And what was the result? I got the data I needed for that project. And again, in the networking examples, I gave more than one example. I gave about 3 or 4 examples in my networking example. And that one I talked about was in my hostel then in school. We had this very minor fire outbreak, and the funny thing is that we had fire extinguishers. Nobody could use it. So before the security from people come outside escalated somehow, but they still put it down. So just jokingly, other girls were like, we had this fire outbreak in my hostel that escalated not because we didn't have extinguishers, but we had extinguishers and none of us could use it, including me. I couldn't use it then. And then, so after the whole thing happened, they were now like making fun of the engineering girls. They're just like in pidgin, like engineering girls, what's not like just engineering for math and all not to wear lab coat, blah 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 blah. They're just using pidgin to make fun of us. That how we have engineering girls in the hostel and none of us could use extinguishers when we had extinguishers at every point in the hostel. So I thought about this and I was like, how can I prevent this from reoccurring? So there's this safety institute we have in Port Harcourt. It's very big, a very good safety institute. They call it the Chevening Offshore Maritime Safety Academy. So I knew about that safety institute. They are very, very good when it comes to safety and marine studies and everything. So because I had volunteered there one time, we had an event, and the Nigerian Society of Engineers organized a courtesy visit then, and I had gone there and I networks. I was able to get networks there. So you see why networking is very important. You need to show them how that you use your network to solve a problem. So I reached out to my networks there, and then I talked to them about the issue we had in the school and how I would like them to hold a firefighting training for female engineering students. So I know we have female engineering students in different hostels, in different dormitories, so that we know how to fight at least basic fire to prevent a reoccurrence. And they were really happy. They were open to the idea, and they said we should come for this training. So I went with students from my school, female students. I went down, then they trained us on firefighting. They had this firefighting training with us, and we learned how to fight like fire with fire extinguishers. So now, if you check this example I gave, so that the second example I gave now, you can easily see my situation, task, action, and result. The situation was that from the story, we had fire incidents in the school, and then we could not fight it because we didn't know how to use fire extinguishers. The task was I had to go to this safety institute, the Chevening Offshore Maritime Safety Academy, and I reached out to them and I told them about the incident, and then they said, okay, we could let's organize this training for students. That was the action. And what was the result? Female students knew how to use, now know how to use fire extinguishers to prevent a reoccurrence. So somehow, you should not just talk about how you build networks alone. Talk about how you build networks, not for your own personal benefit. You can have an example where your network benefited you, but it's still good to talk about how you use that network for the good of the public, for the good of your community. I also give examples of situations where my network benefited from me being in the person's network. So it should be a two-way thing. Networking should just be one-sided. You just take. You should also give somehow. So that was just what I think about networking.
So to add to what she said about networking, I feel also that you should look at it from also this angle. What you bring into the relationship or to the network, and then what you get from that network, and then over a period of time, how do you sustain how do you maintain, sustain and maintain. So it's not like, oh, you just go in, grab what you want, and then you grab. Because Chevening is also very conscious to know that, okay, so after the scholarship, are you going to be able to maintain that relationship? Because they want to maintain the relationship with you. They want to know if you're also being able to maintain that relationship with them. So if you're able to show that in your networking, then I feel that you're good. And please be as concise and straight to the point as possible. Like she mentioned, use the STAR approach. One sentence, or one sentence. You have 500 words for each essays. Of the essays.
And you need to give examples.
If you can do 100 words for one situation, 100 words for the task, 100 words for the action, 100 words for the result. I used to have an extra L in my own, which is my lessons or my learning.
I did that also.
So if you streamline it to 100 words, so the ones that are not up to 100, you can add the extra to the other ones. For me, my words are always 499. Like
I think my own was. I think I had some issues that were 500 on the dot.
Okay. As a general rule, please don't limit yourself to actually 500. For the first time, write as free flow. Write, even if it's 1,000 words that you want to write and bring out all of that thing inside your head and in your mind. So once you've now done with that, then you can now start editing. You can have version 1, version 2, version 3.
I had up to version 12.
Exactly. You have as many versions as. For me, I was editing. I actually started writing my application before it opened because I didn't know the question, and I'd been in the interview stage before, and I'd applied so I started writing my application like 2 months to when it was even going to open. By the time Chevening was open, I'd already finished my application, but I was editing almost every week. I was editing, fine-tuning, upgrading. So if I want to count the number of versions I had, I don't know.
One of my impressions about the networking is, I think you should always reference the Chevening alumni, the large network that Chevening has, and how you want to leverage on that network. So I talked about the fact that as a Chevening scholar, I plan to probably, I think they had this conference, and I did my research very well, I did my homework. So I knew that they had.
You have to do your homework.
So I knew that they had this conference, the Chevening conference, where some scholars would present papers in their field. So I was like, one of the ways I plan to build networks is in the Chevening community is to present a paper at the Chevening conference, so that way I can reach out to other scholars from different countries that have similar goals as I have similar goals with me, so that we'll come together and have like a collaboration and work on something together. So that you need to, Chevening is very particular about their network. So talk about the fact that they have lots of alumni, and you want to leverage on it, and you network with it, and you also add to the network they have. So that's just it for the
one final one. For me also, yes, as you mentioned, always link it. Whatever examples you're giving, especially during networking and long-term plan, always link it to what is Chevening's core focus in your country, and then also find a way to link it to the UK and Nigeria. For me, I was fortunate and lucky, thank God. I was in Ghana about 3 weeks to my interview for a security training, and the UK Armed Forces Minister, MP James Hippie, he was in Ghana at the time. So we met. And then we had a brief conversation. So I was able to also use that.
Exactly. And also, I think it's good to put out names. If you
call their names.
Talk about the conference. If you say you were at this conference, talk about the conference, and so as to be like, just say I went for a conference. What conference?
Don't be generic.
Exactly. Just be very specific. I went for this conference. Don't
say I
met this person.
Exactly. Don't say I went for engineering conference. Exactly. No, I went for XYZ engineering conference and I met XYZ person. Who is the XYZ person? Exactly. And this is what the conversation we had and how that moved. So because that will also let them know that, oh, you even remember these people and you're still conscious about them and you're still reaching out to them and then you're still working with them. And trust me, that networking essay, to a very large extent, it may be tricky because you'll be looking at, okay, this person I met, how do I relate this person to the UK? Go and read about their bio. Some of them may have had something to do with the UK or may have had like a previous relationship with the UK. Find about, so I was able to link anything. I'm linking it. Anything, I'm linking it. I had an engagement with the presidential committees. There's this time that the president set up these different committees for Nigeria's long-term plan 2030 and 2050. So I was working on the CCHTI, that is the culture, hospitality, tourism industry, and the person is a very good friend of the chair, was a very good friend of the UK. But before then, I had called him to say, oh, I have this interview. I'm going to use an example of my work with you in this interview. So I hope it's okay. We're like, oh, yeah, it's very fine. It's okay and all. So I also mean like, oh, so this person, I work with this person, so that I did with this person, and I still maintain the relationship. And he's even a friend of the UK because the ambassador even calls him, invites him to events at the UK embassy and the High Commission, and all of those things. So try as much as possible to, make them feel very happy that they're bringing somebody that already understands the UK culture and the UK personalities, and that can create that bridge between the UK,
a relationship
between the UK and Nigeria.
Foster better relationship between the UK and Nigeria.
Okay, so for the networking essay, Chevening wants to know how you've been able to facilitate relationships with long-lasting relationships with other people, and how were the relationships beneficial to you and to the other person. So for the networking essay, I usually say that the leadership and networking essays are very related. And so in the networking essay, I built up on a lot of things I had already talked about in my leadership essay. So I started with what I believe networking is. I talked about how I think networking is the ability to create meaningful and long-lasting relationships, and also ensuring that those relationships continue to be beneficial to both of you in the long run. Then I went ahead to introduce my networking experiences. So the first one, also in my first draft, I had I think over 5 different networking experiences, and I eventually shortlisted the top 3. So for the first one, I referred back to when I was the vice president for ISEC Lagos, and I talked about what we do in ISEC is actually, like I said, to facilitate. We try to develop leadership abilities in young people, and we do that by facilitating cross-cultural exchanges. That is, we get young people from other countries to come into Nigeria, for example, to work on sustainable development goal projects. So they are doing 2 things. One, they are working, and they will be working on a social impact project in a foreign country. So that helps them to contribute positively to society and also to improve their own leadership abilities. So I talked about how while in 2018 or 2019, I can't remember now, while I was a member of ISEC Lagos, I was able to meet an exchange participant that came in from Liberia to work on an exchange, work on one of our exchange projects in Lagos. And then after she went back to her country, she came in, made an impact, contributed to Nigerian society. I talked about how after she went back to her country, I kept in touch with her. It was very, very interesting that we were studying in the same field. She was also an engineering student, and I kept in touch with her, and through that relationship, I was able to develop with her. When I became the vice president for that same arm that was responsible for attracting global volunteers to Nigeria, to Lagos in particular, I was able to leverage on the relationship I had with her to attract people from to attract exchange participants from our school and from our country, Liberia, to the extent that the highest number of exchange participants I had that year as vice president came from Liberia and came from our school, I think. So I was able to, like I said, I made the situation was clear, the task, the action, and the result, which I just explained. And then I think my second example was also related to the slum education project I had, and I talked about the partnership I mentioned in the leadership essay, how I were able to secure a partnership with an organization that enabled us that would enable us to send over 20 children to government schools. So I talked about how when we started the project, I knew myself and my team could not do it alone. So we needed to reach out to organizations that had experience in the slum education field. So that was when I was able to meet the team lead of Atlas, that's Access to Learning and School Initiative. So I talked about how through that partnership I was able to secure with him, he went ahead to contribute a lot to that project in terms of the organization and the team lead himself, Mr. Habib. They contributed a lot to volunteer training, and even when we're having issues in the community, with their experience, they were able to help us weather through those problems. And at the end, they were the ones we were able to secure that partnership with to send 20 children to proper government schools. And then I believe the final example was, so I decided to talk about, I kept that example. I felt it was strong because I mentioned that was how I got to know about the Chevening scholarship. So I talked about how the situation as well. While I was vice president for ISEC Lagos as well, and I was expecting a global exchange participant, but the project she was supposed to work on was suddenly closed by the organization. So she was already set to come in. I think it was a week before that. I needed to find a substitute social impact project for her to work on. So I talked about how I leveraged on my existing ISEC network to reach out to people who were working in the sustainable development field. And that was how I met Dr. Cassandra Akide of the Neo Child Initiative, TNCI, where they have a lot of health initiative projects regarding children in Nigerian communities. So I was able to secure a partnership with her, and I got an emergency project for my exchange participants to work on. At the same time, I volunteered on the project, and I was able to get other ISEC members to volunteer on that project. And it did not end there. It was through her that I was able to find out about the Chevening scholarship, because she's a 2019 Chevening scholar, and she's one of the people that has been very, very instrumental to my Chevening scholarship experience. So that was my third example, and then I concluded my essay with the conclusion that through the Chevening scholarship program as well, I hope to further develop my networks, to expand it to networks in the UK, in the energy industry, as well as the Chevening alumni community globally and in Nigeria.
How were you able to pick the ones that you felt were the right ones?
Okay, so I looked at the ones that were very, very clear in terms of how I was able to initiate the partnership, what was the problem or the challenge initiating that partnership helped me to solve, and as well as how was the partnership beneficial to both parties, especially to me in the furtherance of my goals at that time. So that was the other two examples I shortlisted. One was about when I attended an international conference in the US, and while it was attractive because it was an international conference, I could not really wrap my hand around something very, very concrete that those networks had helped me to develop yet. So I, even though I included it in my first draft, I had to keep it out eventually. And then I think this other one was also something I did while I was an executive of my faculty in school. I talked about how we worked with a particular member of the engineering alumni community in the University of Lagos Engineering Alumni Community, but I could also not wrap my head around something very, very impactful, something as impactful as the other three examples I had. So I settled for those three examples eventually.
What tools did you use for this networking essay?
Okay, so considering that the leadership and networking essays are based on your own experience and what you've done, So I focused on facts from my own project. So how many people did this networking opportunity help me to impact in the long run? I think for the first example, I talked about how the number of exchange participants. I talked about how number of exchange participants increased from the previous year to yeah. So I used specific figures from my experiences to buttress my points as to how these networks actually helped me to make an impact in what I was working on, and an impact in the society. So yeah, I think those were the facts and figures and statistics that I had really. They were from my own personal experiences.
Okay, final advice for anybody that is having
Okay, yeah. So I think in writing the networking essay, it's very, very important to first understand what networking is. So sit down and think about how you've used social media to reach out to people that have helped you and how you've helped them. Sit down and think about how your friends have assisted you to advance your career plans or advance your personal projects. Sit down and think about how anybody at all in the past has helped you in one way or the other to advance your plans and goals. When you can figure that out, and then you go ahead to list out all those examples, then you start to develop them, making it clear how those relationships you have to be very, very clear about how you initiated those relationships, because Chevening has to say that you actually initiated the relationship. How did the relationship come about? Don't just invent the relationship from the sky. So how did that network come about, and how did the network eventually translate to helping you to make an impact in the society, helping you to achieve your goals? And it would be very, very nice to also include how you also benefited this person you have a relationship with, because networking is not supposed to be one-sided. It should mostly be a mutual relationship between both parties.
So lots of people, I feel like this is one essay that a lot of people miss. They make a lot of mistakes in terms of their understanding and how they even demonstrate this example. So the two things I'm going to talk about: firstly, what networking really means, and secondly, the need for you to think about networking more from a professional point of view. Now, networking doesn't mean that you know the president of a country, or you know top people, or you know powerful people. If you cannot demonstrate how through these powerful people you were able to do something, or how you had value to those people's lives, or how they add value to their lives, it's not networking. Secondly, networking is not just, oh, you're part of a society in school. If there's nothing practical that came out of it, I advise that you stay clear of it. Also, because Chevening is not mostly an academic or a recent graduate scholarship, it's more for early or mid-career professionals, people that have left school, have work experience. There's a reason why they want to have work experience, because it's more for people that have developed themselves professionally and have a clear picture of what they want. So personally, I would say that you focus more on examples in your networking that are related to professional examples as opposed to academic examples. Now let's talk about what kind of examples can you talk about and how you can relate these examples to them, because that is very important for you to get high scores. Now the essays, networking essays that get the highest scores are essays that can demonstrate a wide variety of networking examples. So don't just focus on social media networking. So I met somebody on social media, and all through your essay talking about how you met people on social media. No, show how versatile you are, especially in the world that we live in, how things are very unpredictable. You need to show networking in terms of social media. You need to show networking in terms of volunteering. So all of these things also help to build you as someone that cares about your society. You need to show networking in terms of professional. So are you a member of associations? Did you network in your workplace with somebody in another department? You have to show it in diverse ways. Did you attend an event and exchange number with somebody? How are you networking? Are you a member of professional organizations? Did you go for boot camps? Did you go for summits? Did you go for other development or fellowships? Show how, you even need to sell yourself through this. So show how you've been developing yourself, how you've been working on building yourself So and show how you understand the meaning of networking and the importance of it. So in this essay, I'll say that you need to show a variety of networking examples, but beyond showing the variety, so beyond just saying, oh, part of this organization, you networked, you met somebody, or part of this event, you networked, you met somebody, on social media, you met somebody. This is also an extension of a leadership example. So how exactly did you build a relationship with this person? So in networking, you need to show how you meet people. So show examples of you doing this on social media, volunteering, professional, being a member of associations, going for events. Secondly, show how you now talk to these people, make them part of your network. So how exactly do you reach out to these people? You need to be detailed in that. How exactly do you make them become close networks of yours? How do you maintain the relationships? How do you add value to their lives? Because networking is not just, oh, I know somebody, they did something for me. No, that's not networking. That's using people. You need to show how it's not a saprophytic relationship, but a symbiotic relationship that benefits both parties. Networking is not even just, oh, individuals. You can also show how you network with organizations, how you're adding value to organizations that have added value to you. So the point is, how did you meet this person? First, how did you even meet the person? So you went for this, you went for that, you're a part of this, you're a part of that first. Now, how do you build a relationship with this person? So how did you speak to them? How did you get them to want to be close to you in your network or work with you? How do you do that? And then also, how did you influence them to join you on a course? Now, the networking is not just, oh, I know people and I build relationships with them, but how exactly are you using these relationships for good? So it's also an extension of your leadership. So maybe some of the projects you even mentioned your leadership or other leadership examples you have. How exactly did you influence these people, and how exactly did your adding value to these people or knowing these people help your project? So a good example of this is, I'm going to use, for example, let's say, I'm trying to think of a very good, let's say you wanted to do an event, yeah? Or you wanted to do an outreach, so you wanted to go and give maybe some underprivileged kids in an organization. Or let me think of something, you wanted to organize a free masterclass for people who maybe need that particular knowledge but cannot afford it. So one way for you to show your networking skills is, let's say you're part of an organization. So have you been given enough value in that organization to get that organization to support you? So maybe how are you building relationships with the key members of that organization? If you've gotten sponsors or partners, how did you get those sponsors or partners? Did you know somebody? Somebody influenced that for you? Do you get, if you got promoted or you were able to ascend further in your career, was it related to you knowing somebody and adding value to that person? I feel like that's actually very tricky. I think you should stay clear of things that don't sound ethical. But basically, how was knowing somebody in your organization critical to you moving ahead or achieving something? So beyond just talking about, oh, I know people or I'm part of this network, how have these networks helped you? Now, you're talking about how they helped you, how they supported you. You need to be specific about the names of the people that you network with, the names of the organizations that you network with, the names of the events that you met these people, the names of the professional body. It's also good to mention that you're part of a professional body if your profession has that. I didn't mention that, but I know people that mention that also helps you as well. Like I said, multiple ways to network is very, very important for you. So beyond just talking about networking and what they did for you, it's very important that you talk about the results. Like I said in the leadership essay, still use the STAR approach. Now, if you don't know what the STAR approach is, it's situation, task, action, and results. I have many videos on this on my channel. You can check it out, or I might link some of these videos to you. Basically talking about the situation. So maybe in this case, you're focusing less on the problem you solved, but how you were able to bring people to solve the problem. Yes, we're going to talk about the problem. So you solve this problem. You focus more on, I was part of this organization. That's the situation. But as being part of this organization, I was working on this project. So I needed to convince them, this organization, to work with me. Or I needed to convince this person to work with me. That's also very important. And then action. So what did they do for me? How were they pivotal? So not really what I did, but what did they do for me? How was that network beneficial to me? And then what was the result of their work in my life or in my course or in my activity? So for example, if you got a sponsor to fund a class, so what was the result? How did they fund it? Did they give you venue? Did they give you money? What exactly did they do? Or did they connect you with facilitators? Or did you know them? So how exactly did they connect with whatever it is that you did? And then the result of it. So what exactly was the result of it? So what exactly came out of it? So what's the impact? So you need to be specific about the percentage of people that you reached. You need to be specific about the impact that it had. So did it change any lives? How many lives did it change? What exactly did you? And like I always say, reflection. So for example, the same thing with the leadership. Don't networking, I feel like you might need to give more examples, possibly 4, just to show how diverse you are. And I think you need to mention how you are a part of different kinds of spaces. And you also need to focus a lot on not just mentioning, oh, I network on social media, but be specific. So I did this on social media, I was able to network with this particular person or this particular body or whatever, and then I was able to do this and this with them. You need to be specific about what exactly is that you did with them. And whatever it is, you need to just take them on a journey beyond just listing things. Avoid the need to list things. And if you want to talk about your uni, which I don't really advise, except what you did was groundbreaking, you need to also follow these steps. And which is very important, I forgot to add this, or I've not forgotten because the video is still on. You need to talk about how you're going to do this in the Chevening network. So the Chevening alumni network, as an alumni, as a scholar, how exactly are you going to demonstrate these networking skills? What exactly are you going to do? Don't just say, oh, I'm going to network. It helps you to get a higher score when you can be specific about what you want to do in the network. So think thoroughly, do your research about what you can do in the Chevening network. And like I always say, all your examples, what you want to do in the network, everything, let's say relates to your career plan and the course you want to study. Bring everything together. Avoid sounding disjointed. Have a persona you want to sell. If you're passionate about education, let all your essays show how you've been passionate about education. If you're passionate about climate change, let all your essays show how you've been passionate about climate change. Be consistent, and I wish you the very best. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, drop a comment, share this video, and subscribe to my channel. Help me grow. Go binge watch my other videos on Chevening, on scholarships. Just learn, grow, and I'm rooting for you. If you want my direct help in terms of review, or my services, obviously in terms of talking to you, giving you advice, check the description box below for how you can reach out to me about that. And I look forward to working with you, and I look forward to celebrating you as well. Thank you guys for watching this video. Do have a great day, and I'm rooting for you. You will get a scholarship.
Alright, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Subscribe to the AFM Series YouTube channel for more and more great videos like this on winning Chevening and other amazing scholarships.